The Endurance Asia podcast.
And always tell a truthful story if they ever ask. Stop the complaining cause things ain't that bad.
This is the first episode of the Endurance Asia podcast, and we're kicking off with an absolute cracker today. Tomokazu Ihara San, or Tomo-san as he's more affectionately known, is ultra runner based out of Japan. He is on a quest to run 100-mile races, and he's just got back from, or is on his way back from the Barkley Marathons, where he lodged a fun run, 3 laps. We'll get into a bit more of that after the interview, but I'm keen to get straight into the interview and get this absolute legend's story out there to the English-speaking community. He runs his own podcast in Japan. It's in Japanese, and I think this is the first one that he's posted in English. So let's get into it. Tomokazu Ihara San. Tomo-san, welcome to the Endurance Asia podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's so good to have you here and being able to speak with you and hear your story. It's been 3 weeks since we met now. It's like 3 weeks to the day that we met in Hong Kong.
First time we met, yes.
At the Hong Kong 4 Trails Ultra Challenge, and yeah, we'll get deep into that today. But really, what I'm excited about today is sharing your story of 100 miles, 100 times, which is just a mind-blowing concept in my eyes. And we'll get into that. But yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to kick off by you obviously introing yourself, but just really finding out what your backstory is, Tomo. Who is Tomo-san? How did you get to be sitting here today?
Okay, so my name's Tomo. My full name is Tomokazu Ihara. I'm 41 years old. I started running back in 2008. That was when I was 100 kilos in weight.
How high? How tall are you?
178 centimeters. Wow. So I was pretty big guy. And that was when I joined Amer Sports, my previous company. So Amer Sports carries all kinds of brands such as Wilson, Sunto Salomon, Precor. So I was in the Precor division. And every year we have a trade show. And that year, there was a team competition within our team to kind of lose weight using our cardiovascular equipment as well as our Sunto watches, which is one of our brands. And the sales guys told me, I'm a big guy, fat guy, so you're in. And then I did like 5K, not runs, but walk, because running was too hard. So I kept on doing 5Ks on the treadmill for like 3 months, and I lost 7 kg. And then after like 3 months, I got into running, and it became a part of my life. It's like washing your face in the morning. If I don't run, I don't feel good. So that type of thing. And then now I'm running 100 miles, and I'm planning to do 100 miles 100 times. So I shortened my story, but that's me.
Yeah, so going back a little bit more. So you were over 100 kilos in 2008. Were you always like overweight as a kid? Were you athletic as a kid? What were you like growing up?
So I used to be athletic when I was until junior high. I was doing soccer. I used to live in Scotland.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
A town called Katadyn, which is a little bit south of Edinburgh.
Got you.
Yeah.
What took you to Scotland?
My father's work. He was the operations manager for Mitsubishi Electronics, and he went to that factory as the operations guy.
How long did you spend there?
5 years.
Oh, so and what age were you? So
6 to 11.
Okay, cool. Wow, that's pretty formative years as well. and pretty cold and miserable there as well. What are your memories of Scotland?
I like playing soccer with my friends. That's where I learned my soccer, and I did my soccer until junior high. Scotland, yeah, Nessie.
Yeah, Loch Ness.
Loch Ness. Yeah, it was a good memory. Yeah.
There's some good trail running up there as well.
I
Actually.
wish I knew at that time.
Yeah, obviously quite. You got you've got Ben Nevis is a good mountain up there. I mean, it's like fell running in the north of England. Scotland's huge. But and so you moved back to Japan when you were like going into your teens and.
Correct, and then after high school, I went to college in Seattle, in America, and that's where I'm catching up with my English.
Yeah, your English is amazing. Like we're sitting here in Japan right now. I love coming to Tokyo.
So your question was my fitness level. So I used to do soccer until junior high. I didn't do any sports in high school, and after I started working, I just became gained weight with, I guess, the stress and work.
Yeah, salary man style, like drinking every night and
putting my tie on my head, like Japanese salary man style, So that's where I gained my weight.
Yeah, it's that's really interesting. And so you didn't it started with just a competition at work, something as simple as that, as like a weight loss competition.
Correct. Yes.
What was I'm actually interested. How did they set up the competition? Was it how much you could lose within a certain amount of time? Was it how much weight you could lose, or
within 3 months?
Got you.
So
did you win?
I win. So the rule was use the cardiovascular and Sunto watch, and try to lose weight within BMI. Lose weight and BMI is kind of equal, but to lose BMI within 3 months was our goal. And we kind of photograph ourselves before and after, and we presented that during our show.
Yeah, how many people were in the competition? I'm just asking because I think for anyone that's at work, or like we'd have like weight loss competitions and stuff at work, but it can be the catalyst to just turn someone from being really unfit, overweight to being an amazing athlete. So how was it structured?
It was about 10 sales guys and 2 marketing guys and myself and some service guys, about 15.
Yeah.
15.
And having, especially people in sales, are naturally so competitive. So I can imagine that it got pretty competitive.
Exactly. Another competition, just for example, I did while I was in Amherst Sports. That's when it was, I started to do 100 miles. I did 100 mile on a treadmill, and I ran on the treadmill for 100 miles. And the competition was against the Amherst Sports colleagues, and there was about 25 people who ran. Some people ran only 2K, some people ran like 10K, and some people ran 20K, and there was about 25 people who competed against me to run 100 miles.
So let me get this straight. You competed against the whole company, you running 100 miles, and they had to try and beat you and amongst 25 other people.
Correct.
So who won?
Actually, my colleagues won. They were like an hour or 30 minutes faster than me.
Oh, they did it on speed.
Yeah.
That's because actually, when I was doing some research for us meeting today, I saw the article on the Precor website. Precor is the treadmill machine, and I was thinking, who runs a fucking 100 miles on a treadmill? Like honestly, if I remember in Singapore when I first moved there, we had like really bad haze, and you were told you couldn't go outside. So I was like, I've got to run inside. I did like a half marathon on the treadmill. I was like, never again. It's the most tedious thing. Doing like 5 times that on a treadmill. And so I did the research. I was like, I'm sure that must be a record somewhere. And actually, did you research to see if there was any records?
Yeah, there was someone who did like 500K.
There's someone that's done 500K. Okay. Okay, that's great. Who's got that record? Did you see?
I think that was someone in UK or something.
Okay.
Because I looked up running on treadmill or something, and Guinness Book, and Guinness Record or something, and I saw that in like 3 days or something. Yeah, that was so crazy. I thought I was crazy, but there's more people that are more crazy.
No matter how crazy you are, you think you can be, there's always someone crazier. Yeah, the records that I saw on Guinness Book of Records were actually the furthest run within 12 hours, and then the furthest run within 24. And I think that, and it was based on the time. So, but still, like 100 miles on a treadmill was mental. Actually, how did you keep yourself entertained during it then?
Oh, actually, our treadmills do have it's like a console which has you can watch Netflix, Spotify, and that time I was really into Barkley, my first Barkley that I did last year. Before that, I did the treadmill 100, and on the Netflix, maybe you haven't saw it before, they have the Barkley documentary, and I was watching that continuously.
You watched it over and over?
Keep my motivation and momentum up for the race.
Brilliant. Yeah. That's so good. When I was training for the 4 trails, I don't know if you've listened to it yet, I guess you might have, but David Goggins' audio book. Have you heard of David Goggins?
Yeah, I think I've heard of him.
He's like a Navy SEAL, but I know you've done Hurt100 4 times. He's done Hurt100 a few times. You've probably done it in the same years. But he's got You Can't Hurt Me, his audio book is just phenomenal story. And when I was training for the 4 trails, I was like listening to that incessantly as motivation.
Really? Yeah, I need to check that out.
Honestly, he's been on loads of podcasts like Joe Rogan, quite a few others, but his audio book is one of the most motivational stories that I've heard in my life. Like it's unbelievable. Check it out. So taking it back, you do this competition, you lose the 7 kilometers, and then running becomes a part of your life. Like, how do you go from that walking 5K to coming up with the concept of 100 miles 100 times?
So after losing 7K on the treadmill after 3 months, running became my lifestyle, and I wanted another motivation for a goal to aim for, and I asked my colleague, one of my sales guys, he pointed at a poster within our company. It's called Madarao Forest Trail. It's one of the famous 50K races, but it also has a 15K race, and it's a trail running race. So actually, a lot of runners go through the marathon first, the road running, and then become ultra. I just started from trail, and before I went for the race, one of my colleagues took me to the mountains, because you need to prepare for the mountains before doing a mountain race, trail running race. So he took me to one of the major mountains in Tokyo called Takao, where I live right now. And just running up those high, steep hills was like very tough. But, you know, the trails, the smell of the mud, the birds singing, the sunshine, it was just phenomenal. It was just amazing. And I was just, and after you run, the food tastes good and all that thing. I just thought, why didn't I know this sport? I'm like almost 30, and why didn't I know this sport? I used to I was born in Nagano, where there's a lot of mountains. Why didn't I? So that was it's like a thunder in my head. Like, I need to do this. I want to continue this as a lifetime, until I get old. I want to do this until I get really old. So that was so shocking that since then I just love the sports. And if you do like 15K, I finished 15K, then you get hurt. During the race, you said, I'm not doing this again, and you think about that. But after like 2 weeks later, you think about a 30K race, and then a 50K, and 100K, then 120, then 100 miles. Like 100 miles is like a distance for me. You can run without sleeping, almost. A marathon is like a distance that a human being can really, really run fast with his best effort. So 100 miles is something I kind of made my distance longer and longer, and just stop and says, this is a fun sport. And I just said, I just continued to do 100 miles, 100 miles, 100 miles.
So how long was the progression from that 15K race you started from to your first 100 miles?
Yes. So 2008 was my first 15K, and 2010 November was my first 100 mile, which I did on my own. It's like a fat ass 100 miles because I wanted to run a race in America called Chimera 100 in Los Angeles, California, and I said I need to train for this, and I just ran along the river, which I usually ran, which is about 55K, and then I continued my run to go to a mountain. It's called Ome in Japan, and that's where I trained my training run on the trails. So I just put that all together, and it was like 80K, 50 miles. So I just said, just going back to back is 100 miles. Let's do it.
So let me get this straight. You trained for 100 miles by doing 100 miles. Like they always say, if you're like training for a marathon, you'd go up to maybe 20 miles, 30 odd kilometers, but don't do the full distance. But mate, I am completely with you, because psychologically, once you train to do that 100 miles, once you've done it, you're like, I can do this. I've done it before, right? And was that your thought behind actually doing the 100-mile training session? Correct.
And I at the time I did some blogs, and I have a lot of notes that I learned on that first 100 miles on that day. And I have like a lot of memos, maybe 50 of them. But those are like, those are still my theories of 100 miles that I learned on that day. And I go back and look at my blog and go through all those notes and says, yes, that is correct. That is a theory for 100 miles. Yes, that's a good point. So I think on my first 100 miles, I learned a book of theories that I still use them for my 100 miles.
So without going into all 50 of those, like going back to that first one, what were the biggest learnings that you had in that very first 100-mile training session?
The theories.
Yeah.
Like don't wear your first shoes on your first run. Things like very simple thing like that. Don't use something new before a run, and a lot of them were like normal things that it is kind of normal now, but it was something new, because at that time there wasn't a 100-mile race in Japan yet.
When did UTMF start?
That was 2011, I think.
2011, the Ultra Trail Mount Fuji was the first time in 2011.
Correct. April, that was the first year. And
so, hold on a second. So, if we go back to 2009, and the ultra running wasn't as big as it is now, obviously. But,
correct.
It's one of those things that most people would just think 100 miles is just too far, because there wasn't many 100-mile races around the world. In fact, some of the big US ones must have been around, right?
Correct.
So, you had like the Grand Slam. Did they all exist then in 2009?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So it was, but in Asia it wasn't really a thing. Certainly not in Japan.
Yeah. So when I was kind of heard about the Hurt100 from one of my the training partner, I was like shocked. I thought 100K was the furthest anywhere. So he says that there's 100 miles. I was like, really? And then when I kind of researched more into it, I learned about the Western states and Leadville and Vermont and all those 100 miles. And and at that time there was only one guy in Japan who ran some of the American 100 miles, which is my close friend now. But that was amazing.
So how did you find out about him? How did you find out that he had run them? How did you get to meet the guy that was the first guy to have run them?
So once I know the phrase Western States or Leadville, I just searched in Japanese in Google, and then his blog came up.
Got you.
He already ran it like 2 years ago, and I'm like, wow, there was someone who exists.
And so you just reached straight out to him and
Yeah.
got to get his advice.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, and so how did you go from, okay, you want to train for this 100-mile race, you do a 100-mile training session. How did you come up with doing it 100 times? Because at that stage, there's no way that you didn't even know if you could do 100 miles, let alone if you could do it 100 times. So
Yes.
when did that come about?
Until I do my my first 100 mile the challenge was to finish 100 mile. After doing like one dozen, like 15, 100 miles it's still a challenge, but not far because until like my 10th one, I was always thinking 100 miles is so far. Like after you run like 70 miles, you still have like 30 miles, which is more than a marathon, and it makes you crazy. But after like 15 of them, I feel like it's not that far. And like until like the 15th 100 mile, I put a lot of effort in each races. And I have I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I have a daughter. So you need to sacrifice a lot of time. And I think at that time I sacrificed too much of my family time or work time, and I was a little bit selfish about myself, using a lot of time on my running, go out running in the weekends. So like it's the balance, and I learned at that point that I can't put too much effort on my running, or the balance will be kind of odd, or the balance of the family time will break, right? Yeah. I guess a lot of the people who are runners have a family, and they've gone through those moments. So I said to myself, I need to balance this thing. So if I put too much effort, that balance gets odd. So I said to myself that I want to plan for a longer period of times, so that I can continue this sport. I love this sport, so I know a lot of people who's been in this sport but are gone now. I don't know why they're gone. There might be other reasons, like they have some more interest in some other sports, or some people might not be able to balance their life between this. So I said to myself, I want to run until like I'm 80 or 90. So how do I do this? I said, and there was only one way to do it. Just balance your family time, work, and running to almost be equal. But my priority is always my family. Second is my work, and third is my running. So I need to balance that always, so that my family and work is always before my running. So then I said to myself, well, I need to have a longer goal, and yeah, that's why I came with 100 miles 100 times, because basically it's going to take me like 20 years to achieve it. And it's also a fun goal. 100 mile is a good goal, but doing that 100 times is a lifetime achievement. And yeah.
There's a few things that I'd like to sort of unpack a little bit there. The goal piece is what I love about it, and one of the other guys we're going to get on the podcast, Grant X Rawlinson, he talks about a big unique goal, and I think it's the uniqueness of this is like it just really excites me. But the bit I want to unpack is just around the family and like, how old's your daughter?
7.
7 years old. Okay. So then, so she was born 2012. So you were like 3 years into the. How do you go about getting your wife, your family on this journey with you? How do you bring them along on the ride?
First of all, when I quit my previous job, which was I was working in Amherst Sports, which I did the treadmill challenge, right, pre-core. I was like a salary man, but now I quit that job and I'm self-employed right now. I'm online coaching. I do online coaching as my business. So that's kind of strange that I used to be a fat guy 10 years ago, and now I'm coaching running to people, right? Like 10 years ago, I couldn't have imagined me teaching someone running, ultra running. That's kind of strange, but now I'm here. But it used to be, when I was like the salaryman, I go to work from 9 to 5. So normally I put my training from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. That's when my wife and kids are sleeping. So they have nothing to say about me running while they're sleeping. So I try to put my workout while they are sleeping or while they're doing something else that it's still okay without me being there. And that's where I do my training. And now I quit my job, previous job, and I'm online coaching.
When did you finish at Amcor?
November last year.
Got you. Okay.
So now they're kind of supportive because that's my job right now. So there are more.
Do they sponsor you?
Yeah, the previous company.
Yeah.
Not now. Not. Sunto and Salomon, yeah, they do support me with shoes and watches. Yes.
Like surely you, because I was thinking, I actually thought you still worked for them. So I was, I just thought, what an amazing like ambassador for their company that you are, and your whole like story of going from the 100 kilo to then being an ultra marathon runner is just, especially with the brands that they have underneath them.
Yeah.
But, are you sponsored by any other companies?
Yes, I'm sponsored by a Japanese trail running gear called Answer4. It's a Japanese brand. I don't think it's well known around the globe because it's only sold in Japan. But I'm now working as their sales rep to do global expansion outside Japan. Cool. So I've started to do sales in Hong Kong, and they're starting to carry the Answer4, and we'll do Taiwan and Korea and eventually Singapore, so that we can do global expansion. And I'm sponsored by New-HALE, which is the taping brand, like KT tapes. So it's called New-HALE. It's a Japanese brand, and they want to do global expansion. So I'm doing some of the work. So online coaching is about 30% of my business, and others is other.
It's distribution, and I'll have to connect you with Jerry Chua. I don't know if you've met her before. You know her, yeah. She runs Red Dot Running down there. But
I just sent the email.
Have you?
3 days ago.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, she's made mine.
Jerry is the woman who was planning to run Hong Kong.
She's done Hong Kong 4 Trails before.
Yeah.
No, I think she's actually doing all of the 3 200-milers. Candice's Tahoe, Moab, and there's another one. She's doing those this year. Yeah, and Bigfoot. I'll drop her. I'll drop a message later. Yeah, she's amazing. But yeah, I don't feel like we've properly answered the question around the family side.
Yeah.
Then, so like, how have you got like your daughter and your wife on board with the full journey?
I guess I didn't do anything to get them on board, but I think.
I suppose, are they? Do they get excited about the concept of 100 miles, 100 times? I mean, I met some of your support crew. Was your wife in Hong Kong as well?
No, she wasn't. Yeah.
But yeah, do they do they like the idea of it? Does your wife come out on the trails with you? Like.
She likes to come to the race in Hawaii.
Yeah, I'm sure she does.
She's always there. I'm not sure. She's not on. She doesn't come to the other 100-mile races, but she's always there at the Hawaii one. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But she's supportive because in my daily life, she knows what I like to eat, and she cooks healthy food for me. So she is very, very supportive on the nutrition side. It keeps me healthy because, it's a lifetime journey.
Yeah.
And my daughter is still not getting there. What is 100 miles? She thinks dad runs a lot, and that's it. But she likes climbing. She does the bouldering climbing. So she's really into it. So I just want to support her because being confident with just one thing, anything. I'm very confident with running. I think anyone who has confidence with one thing can change their life. They can be proud of what they do, and how do I say? They can be self-confident, so they can be proud of themselves. So, and it relates to your work as well, because while I joined my previous job, I was just a service guy, but ended up promoted to become a operations manager for APAC. I think the running is the strategy to go and plan for a race is very similar to planning in jobs, like project managing. You need to prepare for what's coming next. It's very, very similar. So in that way, I learned a lot from running that I can use in business.
That you can apply. It's very interesting you say that, actually, because when I met with Andre, who is, CIO, CTO of of CPL, which is a big power company in Hong Kong, and he talks about that, about the logistics, the planning around doing ultra endurance events is just that both his careers sort of feed into each other in that aspect, and they help and benefit each other. But to your point around just your daughter being a rock climbing and getting something that she's really good at, I absolutely agree with that. Like, gaining confidence from one thing in your life can breeds confidence in everything else. Exactly. So I think it's a really really interesting concept. So going back to after around 1,500 milers, you realised that actually, look, I want to make this a long-term goal rather than to put pressure on having to just do it every month and to stretch it out. So were all the the very first 100 miler you did was that training session. So how do you count them? Does it have to be a race, or like how do you sort of quantify that it's a 100 miler? What happens if it's a race which is actually 152 kilometers, right? And do you never sign up for 100k because if you need to do 500 mile or a certain amount of 100 milers a year? So yeah, how do you go about achieving the goal?
Yeah,
and setting the parameters?
It doesn't always need to be a race. It can be those badass runs,
treadmill.
And I've done one on a 400-meter track 400 times. So I count that as one. Hong Kong 4 trails. That was like 298. I also count that as one.
Yeah, you don't get double there. What happened if you did 320? Would that count as 2?
Before the race, I told Andre that I'm going to count that as 1 because he gave me the same question, and he replied to me, but I think that will count as 2.5. And I was just laughing at that time before the race, but after the race, I got that point. Yeah, it is about 2.5. It was very tough. But I just count basically one ultra. It could be, I don't do like 500. 298 was my longest one. I've done like 224 as my training run for the Barkley. But I also count that as one. And I do 100Ks. I'm in UTMB this year. So I'm planning to do 100K in July in Japan because I just want to do one last training race for the race. So I do a lot of the... But
if you do a 50 or 100, it's purely just a training run,
yeah,
basically.
Yeah. I don't count that as a 100 mile.
Yeah. How do you... how do you actually deal with recovery from one to the other? So I know that you've got Barkley coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's been 3 weeks since the 4 trails. So that's a 5-week period in between doing like 298 and then 135 miles or something, isn't it, Barkley? So yeah, how do you sort of recover and then train? And
I like bathing, the bath.
Yeah.
In Japan
Onsen.
we have onsen, right?
Yeah.
It's a real good culture in Japan that we have the onsen. Basically, it's a hot spring, and there's several kinds of the hot water with lots of ingredients that heals your body. I like the one which has the how do you call it? The cider, the sparkling onsen.
Yeah. Okay.
It really relieves your the stress of your body. Yeah. So normally after a big 100-mile run, I would.
Do you mean like jacuzzi style with bubbles, or no? What do you mean like with? Yeah.
Like the drinking sparkling. Yeah. That kind of sparkling.
Okay, it's like it feels like fizzy water when you're in it. Okay,
and it goes into your blood, and it's good. Basically, good heals your body.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I normally go to the onsen near my house. So I basically go to the onsen every day.
Do you?
Yes.
And do you, because I've read a lot about the benefits of sauna but yeah, do you use sauna as well, or is it mainly just on
exactly.
Onsen?
I will spend about an hour and a half there. So
an hour and a half in the sauna?
Yeah. Not in the sauna, but both bath. So I do an hour in the sauna, 1 hour and 30 minutes in the hot spring. Yeah. So the sauna is I do like intervals, 10 minutes in the sauna, 2 minutes in the cold bath, 10 minutes in the sauna, and 2 minutes. I do that 5 sets, and that's about an hour.
And what benefit do you think that gives you?
It's good for first of all, I started this for the Hurt100 because Hurt100 is in January and it's hot in Hawaii and it's winter in Japan, so I need to get used to the humidity and the hot weather, right? So that's why I did it. And after like learning from other people and podcasts, it's also good for your body to be able to sweat and keep your nutrition, the salt.
Yeah.
Within your body. So when you run in the hot weather, your body becomes salty, right? Yeah. The sauna, if you do a lot of sauna sessions, it prevents
your body dispelling the salt from it. It allows you to retain the salt within
exactly,
your body. Yeah.
Exactly. So
interesting. Yeah.
That's one of the training as well. And now I think it's very good for recovery. So I do. When you run 100 miles, your body gets smashed. So most of your fatigue will get reduced through the blood pressure, right? Yeah. So when you're smashed, your blood doesn't flow normal. So I go to the sauna, go to hot, cold, makes your blood pressure more active, and then. So that will reduce the fatigue of your body. And I do that every day after the race, and it really works out.
That's fascinating. You talk about sort of learning from podcasts on it. And there is a lady called Rhonda Patrick. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's got a podcast called FoundMyFitness. But she's a doctor. But she's done a lot of research, and there's a lot of research papers around the efficacy of saunas. And apparently, and I should have done some research on this beforehand, but it reduces all-cause mortality. Like if you have 3 saunas a week, I don't know the exact time, I think it's like minimum 10 minutes, but it's probably longer, but 3 saunas all week can reduce all-cause mortality, so death by any means, by like something ridiculous like 30% or something. It has a really high impact on on sort of reducing sort of death symptoms, anything from cancer to cardiovascular disease, etc. And yeah, I'm not a scientist, but it's all around that your body essentially replenishes itself. The mitochondria, like it kills off dead cells, and it's able to replenish a lot quicker. So in terms of longevity, and it's a lot of the research has been done in sort of Scandinavia and Finland, where they use it quite a lot. I think there's living in Singapore, honestly believe, and there was just a report that came out on the health of the global like countries around the world, and out of the top 5, there was Italy and Spain were 2 of the top, and actually Singapore was very high. But I believe, like in hot countries, there's so many benefits from having vitamin D from the sun, really important. But actually, like the heat and humidity, I think is just really good. And they say that it's actually almost as good as training at altitude, training in high heat and humidity. Yeah, maybe you should get a Precor running machine in the sauna as well. See how that treats you.
Yeah, I'm no scientist as well, but like you explained, I think there's a background behind this, because I know it works for me, and by my body, I feel it really works. And Japanese are one of the most long-lived countries in the people long aging country. I think it's behind this bathing culture,
the
onsen culture. It might be a good point.
Yeah, I think it has to be a big part of it. And you mentioned before around nutrition, and so what's your I think it's big in recovery, but it's also big in preparation, and obviously very important in actual challenges you do. So yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on sort of like day-to-day nutrition, like recovery and during races.
Yeah. While I was on like my 100 miles back in my 10th or 20th, I use a lot of gels. So I use like 1 gel per 30 minutes. So if it's like a more than 24-hour race, I'll be eating like 50 gels. So I had hard times because...
What brand were you using?
I tried to use any of them. But it works at the beginning, but after like 50 miles, it just makes me sick, and it didn't work.
They're so unnatural, aren't they? They're just like,
And I think it's unnatural because we don't eat it every day, but we only eat it on race day, right? If you have one race in a year, that's like one third of one day out of a year. And that's an important day because you want to be successful, but does it make sense to eat unnatural things on the most important day? So I think, it's kind of strange, but people do it. And I do it because I didn't know about anything. Because people do it, so I follow. I think normal runners do it because people do it, right?
Yeah.
But once you go through the moments that you have a hard time and think, isn't there a better way that I can do, not make me sick? So now I use normal natural food. Like during the Hong Kong, I'll eat noodles. I'll take rice balls. I'm Japanese, so I take rice balls and I eat rice balls, and it works out. And also, the only time I maybe use gels is when I really I need to be very fast, so I can catch up with the energy. So that's the only time I use gels. And I do fat adaptation. So since 2 years, I've started to do fat adaptation. So I do fasting. Not every day, but I have this period of time I do fasting.
Intermittent fasting. So like you eat between a certain window?
Yes. So I eat breakfast and I don't eat lunch and I eat dinner. And I have this 12 or 15-hour window that I don't eat. If you don't eat that for that long, your insulin goes down. And then your body starts to use your fat. So I try to train to use my fat, and that's been working out because my energy or my calories that I used to use 2 years ago and now is almost half.
In the race, you mean?
In the race.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's working out using my fat more than before. Yes.
Yeah, I'm a massive proponent of this, and I've been doing like a low carb, high fat diet. Right, I do a bit of like intermittent fasting, but I actually reduce the amount of carbs I eat to be able to adapt me to burning fat. Which, you know, there's lots of thoughts of like, you don't need to do that as long as you do a fasting period and then train when you're fasted. It's enough to adapt your body to be to burn fat as fuel. Have you tested yourself? Have you done any tests to do a fuel efficiency test or anything?
Yes, actually, I will do that next week. Because I wanted to know where I am from before.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so where I have adapted. So I'll have some results next week.
When did you do the first one?
That was about a year ago.
And was that at the starting point before changing?
It was in the middle of
You'd already started.
Yes.
Yeah. And because one thing, I do a low carb diet and I find it very hard every time I come to Japan to maintain my diet. I mean, you can have sashimi, but yeah, everything comes with rice and everything's noodles. And like last night, I had tonkatsu with like bread in, and like you cannot avoid carbohydrates in Japan. But yeah, what is your sort of general day-to-day diet? And
I eat, basically I eat anything I want except the fasting period. So I eat rice, I eat vegetables, but I try to eat a lot of. I don't eat like rice or noodles at night on my dinner, and try more with vegetables and fish, and I try to keep it lower carb. Yeah. But in the morning I will eat like a lot of rice and not noodles, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then would you do you mentioned you do training 5 to 7 in the morning before your
Correct.
Okay, so then you will do that completely fasted?
Yes. And I will take a cup of MCT oil, the mid-chain fat.
Medium chain triglycerides, yeah.
And I put that in my coffee, and then I drink it, and then I go out for a run.
Yeah.
And I was using the MCT during my Hong Kong. Normally I use MCT oil during the 100 miles as well.
Interesting, yeah. One thing to note though, actually, if you have MCT oil, that will break you out of your fast. So I think it's over like 5 calories or so. There's a few thoughts around it, but essentially as soon as you have any type of like fats or anything, your body will start to digest it. It will create enzymes to dry it, so it will bring you out of the fasting period.
Oh, I see.
So actually, they say that black coffee is okay. However, I mean, like Rhonda Patrick that I mentioned before, she talks about that actually black coffee will knock you out of a fast. But you know, there's other people like Tim Ferriss who say that it's okay to have black coffee. But yeah, MCT oil will definitely knock you out of the fasting period. It's not the same as actually having like a rice breakfast before. And but the good thing about MCT oil is it does it allows you to convert it into energy almost instantly. So your liver will convert it into will convert it pretty quickly into fuel for your body. So it helps with the fat adaptation.
Yeah. I take like 6 grams of MCT oil during my run each race. So
and you'd like drink it from the bottle, or like
it's like in a gel type. It's like very yogurt taste.
Yeah.
It's sold in Japan, but I use that, which works well for me.
During races, do you use anything like drink any of your fuel, like Tailwind, or will you just drink plain water?
Plain water, and when I want to go really fast, I take Coke.
Yeah,
like Coke really works for me. I haven't tried the trail wouldn't get. So it might be the same, but it just has the calories, the sugar. I need the sugar, so I take the Coke with me. So while I was on the Hong Kong trail, because after the Wilson Trail, I only had 7 hours and a half to get on the 3 o'clock ferry, and it was like the Hong Kong Trail was 50K, and I only had 7.5 hours, including the transit to the ferry. So.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into your 4 trails performance, and I actually sort of like met you during the first Catchwater, and we had a little chat there, and I've got to say, like, I was like, wow, this guy's so cool. He's so humble and just it's really nice. But yeah, I'm like interested to hear your story about how you found out about it. And what inspired you to go and do it, and then obviously how you found the actual reality of it.
Yeah, so I knew it. I think it was like 3 years ago when it was actually held during the New Year, January, for around not the lunar year, but the normal
calendar year.
Year.
I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah,
and that kind of didn't work out for me because it's a big holiday in Japan.
Yeah.
But once it changed to the lunar year, it kind of worked out for me, and it was one of the things that I really want, because I have a lot of my bucket list is so long, even now. So I need to have priorities because I can't do everything in a year, and sometimes you need to plan it for like 5-year period. But once it became the lunar year, it really worked out with my calendar. So and also the Barkley is one thing that I wanted. It's in my plan as well, which is a 60-hour race. You need to finish within 60 hours, and this one is a 60-hour. Once I got in Barkley, and I failed last year. I wasn't able to accomplish 5 loops. I only did 1 loops out of the cutoff time. And now, this year I'm in Barkley, and I really want to do 5 loops. And I wanted to make the Hong Kong Trail as one of my training runs. I don't want to say this. I don't want to upset Andre, but but actually it wasn't. It was more than a training run. I thought it was more easier, but it wasn't. It was so hard. Because at this point I've done 4,800 miles, but it was one of the hardest. I can't express if there's more than hard. It's that word. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. So I'm glad I did it. It was definitely not a training run. It was like, it was so tough. So I'm glad I finished. I finished within 60 hours. And I'm now more confident to go for the Barkley because I went through that hard period of time. It's so hard.
What was the hardest thing about it?
Body-wise, Hong Kong Trail is one of the unique surfaces, I think, in the world because it has so many stairs. I don't think you can. Someone can tell me if there's more stairs in Hong Kong. There's so many stairs, and it's very hard to go. I don't know how many stairs climbs you need to do within that long period. More than 10,000, or
to put it into
the numbers.
Put into context, like the end of the Wilson Trail.
Yeah.
There's one you go. It's called the Twins, which you do, which is like which you come out at like Stanley, and there's one big climb there, which is 1,000 steps. I would guess, there's like 100 of those climbs.
Yeah.
Like there must be more than that. Yeah.
Is that the one at the end of the Wilson Trail?
End of the Wilson Trail. Yeah.
That
It's a
one.
beast, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an absolute beast. So there's that. I didn't actually. I had to pull out before that, but that 10K is probably like there's a total elevation in that 10K of around. It's got to be like 1,500 meters or so just in that 10K, which is, but that last climb over to Stanley is pretty tough.
Yeah, because when I was on Wilson, I thought it was almost the end. My GPS, I thought it was the end. So I just wanted to know how far to the end, because at that point, before that 2 big climbs, my watch was about 8 hours until the 3 o'clock ferry, right? And I wanted to finish within 60 hours. And that was only my goal. So I can't fail, because that was my goal. So I asked one of the hikers saying, is this the end of the Wilson Trail? And he said, are you running the Hong Kong Fort Trail? I said, yes. You look at that 2 mountains over there. And he pointed those 2 hills. And I was like, what? I almost screamed the F word, like in my heart, like, oh my God, I only have 8 hours till the ferry that's going to leave at 3 a.m. And I climbed up that 2 hills so hard, and at the time I got to the finish, I had like 7 hours, 30 minutes. Yeah.
Did you do press-ups when you got to the end of that one? No.
that was the only time I was asked for the push-up, and I wasn't able to do it because I was so pressured. Like, if I don't finish, I don't know what I'm here for.
And just for anyone that is this something you do at the end of every run? You every 100 miler, you knock out some press ups at the end.
It started from the Hurt100.
That you've done 4 times, right?
Yeah.
So the first time.
I did 6.
You've done it 6 times.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So the race director said, I want to run Hurt next year, and he said, if you do push up, before the 5th loop. I said to the race, I really enjoy this race. I want to do it again. He said, if you do push-ups at each aid station 10 times, I will allow. And it was a kind of a joke for him, but I did it. Now, since then, I'm like the push-up guy who does the push-up at every aid station during the race. So yeah. I like it because...
How many aid stations are there on Hurt?
3.
Okay, so there's 3 in each, and each loop is 20 miles?
20 miles.
Yeah.
Including the start finish, there's like 3 aid stations. I do the push-ups, and I like to entertain the people over there.
So you do 150 push-ups in total. That's awesome.
So everyone knows the push-up guy, but that is not equal to Tomo. So when I talk to someone and I say, I'm Tomo, and when I talk about I do the push-up, they said, you're the push-up guy. So everyone knows me as the push-up guy.
That's brilliant. There's a podcast in the UK called Bad Boy Running. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a real fun, good banter podcast.
Yeah.
But actually they do this thing where there's a real community thing in the UK.
Yeah.
They've got a Facebook group. There's hundreds of people in there, thousands. And they got this thing where you get to the end and do push-ups as well. So they would absolutely worship you, Tomo-san. They would. But so yeah, back to the 4 trails in Hong Kong. You get to the end of the Wilson, and that's a tough trail, the Wilson, isn't it? Each of these trails, on their own, are beasts, right?
Yes.
They are tough.
Yeah, one. So there's 4 trails, and 1 trail is enough. I realized when I was running, it's when I was on the McElhouse Trail, I thought, this is going to be a long day because I've only finished 1 and I have 3 left. And I was on a video chat with one of the finishers in 2017 and 2016 to get more advice about the course.
Who was that?
That was
Jag?
That was Matthew and Hong Fong Fei.
Okay.
Matthew,
yeah.
And he was talking the Wilson is a beast, and Hong Kong Trail at the time, that's the 2nd night, so you get really sleepy. And by the time if you get to Lantau, it's okay because you can finish 70K. So I got that advice, and I was hearing about Wilson is a beast. So at the end of McElhouse, I was like, what am I into? Am I really able to finish within 60 hours? I started to question myself. And it's no course marking. So if you miss a point, you're basically adding up the mileage of what you.
And you mentioned to me before we started that you actually had a GPS device with you the whole time, so that actually told you, that like beeped if you got off in direction, or actually gave you directions.
Correct. And so it's funny that it's called the Geographica, this app, and I had it on my phone, and I was looking at my phone each time at the McElhouse Trail first time, so that I'm not making any mistakes when I got worried. But at the time I got to Wilson, I found out this the feature that it autoplays each section of the GPS, and each section is about 100 meters to 200 meters, and it tells you to go straight, or the next checkpoint is 200 meters. For example, the next checkpoint is 200 meters. It is going uphill 50 meters, and then once you get there, it tells you, beep, you're here. Your next point is 150 meters. So it continuously, it's kind of irritating, but it would be irritating if I knew the course.
Yeah.
But I don't know the course, so it just makes me relieved with getting worried.
What's the app called again? Geographica.
Geographica.
And you hadn't recce'd any of the course beforehand, right? So you'd not been on any of the trails pretty much.
Yes.
Apart from having done, I think you did the 168 in Hong Kong, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
The good thing was that the GPS was the one that Hong Fei gave me before the race. He gave me the one he finished in the previous years. And he's local, and his GPS data is no mistake. So that was strong to having that GPS on my device as well.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. And so you get to the start of the Hong Kong Trail. You are 180k in, and in fact, I was there at the finish line, but you were speaking about how you had an amazing support crew, right? How many people did you have in your support crew?
Two that was continuously supporting me, and two Hong Kong locals, Matthew and Hong Kong Fai. They supported me on parts of the trail. So like 4.
And like, I remember you saying to like Andre about like you got to Hong Kong Trail, and you're like your support crew were like instructing you to do everything, and you were like, can I go now? Am I allowed to go? And they were like, yeah, you can go. And then you just like you sprinted off, and like I think what did you end up doing the Hong Kong Trail in?
About 650.
Far out. Like that's a fast time for anyone just doing the Hong Kong Trail on just the 50. So like, how did you maintain that pace for the whole of it?
Like
with 180 kilometers in the legs.
Yeah, I think I was tired at that point, but my goal was to do within 60 hours, and that was my only choice. I can't fail, and because before the race I was told that if you don't get on the 3 o'clock ferry, you won't be able to make it. So
which Nikki Han
proved it's not true.
What
that was amazing. Yeah. So until then, like I was watching the Breaking 60, the movie, and Andrea was talking about that. So just in my head.
And also because it started an hour later this year, it actually meant that it was even harder to make that 3 a.m. ferry than it had been. You had an hour less to be able to get that 3 a.m. ferry.
Correct. So, like, if I didn't break 60, it didn't mean nothing to me, because that was my only goal. So I told myself, Tomo, whatever you whine or anything, just go and get on that ferry, or else nothing for you. And so I did it in like 6 hours, 50 minutes, but each 1 minute was tough, so tough, because I ran everything. uphill.
Even the uphills.
Uphills.
There's some big hills on the Hong Kong Trail as well. I mean, it's the least elevation of any of them, but there are Mount Butler, is it? Yeah, Jardines Lookout. There's some tough hills on those.
Some of the stairs I just power hiked,
Yeah.
but all the flat hills I ran everything, and each 1 minute was so tough. And there's like 420 1 minute in 6 hours 50 minutes, and each time it was so tough. Like 420 times I told myself, look, just run, don't think about anything. You need to, don't walk. If you walk, you're out. Just keep on running and just focus on that and just be a robot or a machine. And just told myself 420 times, and that. But the time I got to like the halfway point, there's a gas station, and Chiaki was there, and not supporting me, but just there cheering me up.
Yeah.
And once you go through this halfway point, you kind of battle between the times, right? Because when you start the 50K, you only have 7 hours, but the time you get to the halfway point in like 3 hours, you have 4 hours to finish the 25K. And then you go further. If you go like 40K and you have 2 more hours, like
You're getting time in the bank, in the pocket, aren't you, to relieve the pressure?
So I told myself to push hard as I can so that I can get relieved mentally. And it was so hard.
Did you have any injuries or any pain or any? I mean, obviously you got pain. It's like the pain like starts after 20K for me, and you just know that it's gonna. But yeah, I'm sure you had some pain in the legs. But was there any injuries?
No injuries.
No.
Yeah.
And you didn't have any stomach issues, or so you had no other issues apart from just tired and like or aching a bit, obviously.
Normal ultra fatigue.
Yeah.
You just need to push through that moment.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, what time did you actually get to the end of the Hong Kong Trail?
I think we had like 30 minutes in the bank.
So you got there around like 2:00 or
2:30.
You got there 2:30 time. So you had half an hour to get to the ferry, which is still like if you did that during the day when there's traffic, you're not going to make it. But obviously it's middle of the night, so you're. And did you get any sleep throughout the whole thing?
Yes, I got some sleep on the ferry. I think.
Was that the first time you slept over the 3 days?
And I think I got some sleep in the car as well.
Going to the Wilson from the Mac.
To the Wilson, to the Mac, and to end of Wilson to beginning of Hong Kong, I think. But I actually don't remember if I was sleeping or not because I was like in a race, and normally if you do more than like 36 hours, it's not like you sleep, you kind of faint.
Yeah.
You're like a switch. You don't feel I want to sleep. You realize I slept. Yeah. So I think I slept for sometimes, but I think on the ferry, I slept about 30 minutes. And after I got off the ferry, I wanted to sleep for 2 hours 2 hours. I wanted to start when the sun rised. Yeah. At the time, Christian was there, so it wasn't like me racing. I just wanted to finish the race, so I just wanted to. Rather than I go in the dark with my tiredness, I just wanted to have the morning to come, and then I still had like 14 hours to finish.
So you did get a couple of hours sleep at Mui Wo,
Mui Wo, and the crew was massaging me while I was sleeping, so I got the fatigue.
How did you feel when you woke up?
Oh, I felt good because they were using this the machine called what was it? I forgot, but it's like a massage machine that just relieves the muscle. What do you call it?
I don't know the brand name. We'll look it up after, and I'll put it in the notes or something because
Because I bought it after
you
the
bought
race.
one after the race.
Because it works so well, and I now use it by myself. And I'm sorry, I forgot the name. It's not coming in.
That's cool.
we can put it in the notes.
Yeah.
So they was using this massage for me.
And then because even 14 hours is a pretty tight time to be able to do the land. I mean, look, after a few hours sleep, it's actually okay. But without sleep, that's a tough.
Because I finished the race within 57:42, so I only had like. Yeah. So I finished in 12 hours, which is like you have 60 hours and you have 2 hours left is almost like, it's
nothing, right?
It's nothing. So I was thinking this race was easy for me, but it was so hard because people said if you're on Lantal you can finish, but there's a long catchwater that makes you crazy because if you don't run that part, there's big hills coming to the finish. So when I was on those hills, I was glad I was running on the catchwater because if I didn't run on that catchwater,
you'd have had to push it over Sunset and Lantau Peak.
Yeah, and that was hard too.
I think one of the hardest things, I don't know if it affected you, but it was the heat. Like it was just so hot those few. I looked at the Garmin. I checked it just the other day because I hadn't checked it beforehand, and I had 32 degrees on that second day on Wilson. It was showing 32 degrees, which is it was supposed to be 21 degrees, and that just takes it out of you. How did it affect you?
On the first day, like one of the Japanese guys, Soken, was running as well. He was really saying it's so hot. It was so hot. But I was running the Hurt like 2 weeks before the Hong Kong Trail, so he adapted, I think, because I did a lot of the sauna training like usual. So I think I wasn't like too hot compared to Soken, but I was very my body was very salty, so I knew it was very hot, but mentally I wasn't very hot. But the second day when I was on Lantau Trail was very hot. On the last part, so I took some naps, 30-minute naps under the tree because it's so hot. So I tried to wet my body with a lot of water and
just from a stream,
the stream, and just sleep under the tree just to reduce my body temperature because it was so hot. So that kind of worked out, but chafing was another issue as well, which I normally don't get, but I think it was so hot, so I sweat a lot, so I put a lot of chafing cream.
Yeah. But what chafing cream do you use?
I use the Japanese one that's sold in Japan.
Yeah.
Called J1. But that kind of washed away, so it was kind of hard to battle with my chafing.
What did you carry with you? Like, were you carrying your chafing cream?
No.
I
had my chafing cream at the aid station, but
or with your support crew,
each aid station is like 70k or 100k, so that was kind of too long.
What did you carry then? Like, did you carry much food or water, or obviously water, but
I always carry the water with my filter.
Yeah.
Katadyn filter, so I can just take water from the streams or during the tap water, and I carry MCT gels, oils, and I take like rice balls, and take my GPS. I take some wind shells just in case it got like rainy, but I didn't use it anyway, so I should have left it.
I mean, that's one of the things, they weigh next to nothing anyway. If you've got like a thin Solomon one or something, it doesn't weigh anything. But so you didn't carry a massive amount of food. Obviously, fat adapted. You didn't. You carried rice balls. Did you pick food up along the way? And
the noodles. At the noodle shops. That's all.
Yeah. I was at the green post box at Muiwo in the end, and like it was so emotional seeing you get to the finish line, and I could see like what were your feelings when you got to the finish?
Yeah, so while I was like running this race, before the race, I go back to before the because I started to shouting that to my friends in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and my Japanese friends that I'm running 8 Hong Kong 4 trails. So I knew this race, you need support. So I was shouting, can anyone support me and things like that. And all my friends got together and we ended up in a crew. So those crew, Japanese guys, those crew, it was my first time to see them in Hong Kong. We were on like Messenger or we were on video chat, but they were mostly the first time I met. And before the race, I was very satisfied. I have this crew. But while I was running, I was thinking, if I didn't have these people, I can't finish this. And I was so thankful for these people being at each aid station, because basically I'm until I get to one point, it takes me 15 hours or 8 hours. And they need to be there waiting for me for that moment. And I just felt so thankful for them to being there. And I think they worked out the logistics to share cars to pick me up and think of backup plans, because you never know what's going to happen, right? So I think without the place, without me, I think those guys were constantly communicating each other, that saying, Tomo's coming. So what is plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D? And I didn't understand it until I ran it. And it just came to my mind that, these people are helping me out so much. And I was so thankful. And going through the tough course, it makes me emotional, because finally I'm going to finish this race. It took me like 57 hours, so it's so long. And now when I get to the green post, I see all my crew lying up in front of the green post, and it just makes me emotional. Just saying thank you so much. And that's why it brought me tears in front of the post box. Not because I was kissing the green post. It was Andre. It was my crew. It was my friends. And also you were there, Scott. And that was just one of the moments I can't express. It was just thank you. Yeah, and because I wouldn't be able to finish without those people. It was like finally finishing together with the team. And yeah.
The atmosphere there at the end was it was amazing. It's such a like iconic or infamous event where it just brings the whole trail running community. And there was only like, out of the 29 people, only 7 of them were from Hong Kong. It was a really international community. But just everyone gets fully invested in it. And but no one more than obviously Andre. And actually, I spent a lot of time actually watching him as much as watching. And you can see how much this means to him, seeing people achieve it. And he was in tears when he was like, like spraying you with champagne and stuff. And it was pretty emotional. And then after that, it was only like, was it half an hour or 45 minutes after you came in that Nikki came in?
Yes.
And obviously you hung around to see that, and like, I run with her for quite a bit of it, and wow, like, and being the first female to finish as well, like, it's just truly emotional seeing her get over the finish line as well.
Yeah. Because there was a lot of points that really worked out well because I was lucky, or because someone was there. When I was going through these tough moments, I almost gave up, but someone was always there and cheered me, or someone was always there trying to help me out. And those dots were not there until I ran it. I knew I wanted to finish, but those dots I couldn't have imagined before the race. But those dots were very magical for me, because when you go through these tough moments, you're almost giving up, they pop up and they help you out. And they tap you in the back, say, go Tomo. And then you run, and then you're going through these tough moments and you're almost going to give up. And some magical guy just pops up and say, Tomo, you're almost there. And he taps me on the back, and the crews there at the end of the aid station, and gives me nutrition, gives me massages, and has the perfect logistics because they only have like 30-minute window, or everything just was magical. That if there was one mistake, I could not have finished, which those were so fragile. If something got wrong, I could have just not finished. And when I go through those moments, it was like, wow, that was amazing. That was an amazing ride.
Honestly, Tom, it was a phenomenal run, mate, and I've just got so much respect for you. And for anyone that can finish that race, it's an absolute beast. Even the people like a lady called Habiba, who she came in I think it was like 68 hours or something, but she was just crazy being able, the tenacity of her, and when she did it the year before, and she didn't make the 18-hour cutoff on the MAC, and to come back and complete, it's just crazy. Mate, one of the things I wanted to go into actually as well was, I was looking at your ITRA scores and your ITRA runs, International Trail Running Association, and I couldn't see any DNFs on there.
Oh, yes.
There's not one on there. And so one of the things I like to talk about is, this podcast about suffering and survival, but I also like to hear about those times where you get in the pain cave and times that you do not finish. Do you have any? And I'm sure, this is a leading question because I'm interested in about Barkley last year, but have you got much experience of DNF?
So Barkley was my only DNF.
That's your only ever DNF.
Yeah.
You've done 4,800 milers.
Yes.
Plus all the other ones, and you've only DNF one.
Yeah. There's like short races I did, like 15K, 50K, 100K, no DNF.
So Barkley then. You did it last 2018.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
And what happened?
So basically, I won't go through deep into Barkley because it's kind of famous.
I mean, for those that don't know, it's a Netflix documentary. Just go and search for it. If you haven't seen it, then you're missing out. But
so basically, you need to do 5 loops on this course in Frozen Head State Park in Tennessee, and they call it Barkley 100, but I think it's about 140 miles.
You're not allowed to wear a GPS, right?
No GPS, no course marking, no aid station. There's 2 places that you can get water. That's all. And you need to go through these checkpoints and there's a book, hidden book at each checkpoints, and you need to rip your own bib, the same number as your bib number. Last year I was 19, so I ripped page 19. So that year there was 13 books. So until book 9, I was very confident I was going to finish one loop, and I was very careful going through those checkpoints because loop 1 was clockwise and loop 2 was the other way around, anti-clockwise in the night. So running in the night and daylight is very, very hard, especially in the rain, fog, hail. That year the weather was very horrible. So I was trying to memorize the course on loop 1. So once I get the book, every cross points, I looked back so I can kind of remember, because one of my options was to follow a veteran, but that didn't work out because I ended up mostly on my own. So I tried to finish the loop within my own, but I ended up going back and forth with other guys, so sometimes we were in a team. But the time I got to book 10, it started to kind of, not snow, but hail, but heavy rain, thunder, and fog, and I wasn't able to find the book. So I ended up in a cave called Indian Knob, and there was these 4 guys. Because when I got to Indian Knob, there was two lights in front of me, and I knew it was the Barkley runners. And they were, when I caught up with them, they were saying, "We're trying to find this book for an hour and a half, but we still cannot find it." And I was with another guy, so we ended up in a team of 4 trying to find the book in the fog. And the rain got so heavy, and some of the guys got really cold and hyperthermia, so we ended up in this cave. The four guys in a cave.
Was the cave on the trail?
On the trail.
It was on the trail. So you weren't lost, but you just couldn't find the book.
Yeah. We just wanted to keep ourselves warm. and at the time, there was only an hour to find 3 more books, and I thought, I'm done. I was like, oh, my Barkley has finished. And 2 of the guys was hyperthermia, so they said that we're just going to quit and just go back to the base camp. It's called Quitter's Road, and they went back. But I just wanted to, because my Barkley 2018 was finished at that point. Because if you take more than 14 hours on your first loop, you're basically out. You're not allowed to do the second loop. And it took me 18 hours for the first loop, so I was basically out. That was my first DNF. But at the time I was in the cave, I thought, oh, my Barkley is gone. I can't do 5 loops. But my Barkley for 2019 had just started at that cave. So I said, I just want to find this book, because if I can't find this book, I just want to find the book, because 2019 is my next goal. And one of the guys with me said, "Do you want to go?" And he said, "I want to go." So we tagged together and we found the rest of the books. And
how long did it take you to find the next one that you'd been searching for?
That took another 2 hours.
Was it like hidden badly, or?
No, it was like, it took so, like, basically the book was so close, but we were
just going round
and round. And by the time we were there trying to find it for 2 hours, other guys came the other way around. So I found that light coming backwards. So I tried to catch up with them, and because they were trying to find the same book in the other way around. Mm-hmm. So I tried to get tagged with them as a team to find the next book.
And you had maps, so you had maps, compass, and okay.
Mm-hmm. And the written directions, but at the time it's like.
Have you ever done any navigation before, orienteering or anything?
No, I haven't. So the only time I did was before the Barkley. I trained with the good orienteering guys in Japan.
The road gaining.
I can use the compass, and I can at least do some navigation. Yes.
Yeah. Interestingly, so Andre has this thing, and Andre's an absolute beast as well. You know that, but he. When I was talking to him about DNF, he's DNF'd a couple of times. And actually, he's got a philosophy now where he will only, the only way he will leave the course is either he misses a cut-off or he's pulled off the course for some reason or another by like the race director. So whilst you DNF'd it was you were pulled off of it rather than actually pulling yourself off. Yeah, which I think is you can have some amount of solace in that, and that know that you're you didn't quit. Yeah. Which I think is a good thing.
I kind of have the same philosophy. If my legs is torn or someone pulls me out, I won't DNF. Because when I used to start this kind of race, it was just one of my egos or pride that I don't want to DNF because people see me as I DNF'd. Like, I was kind of ashamed of myself. But now I just don't want to DNF because I put too much effort in my training as well. So and I don't want to look into the mirror the next day and say I DNF because I sacrificed a lot of family time and to do the training, and basically the only guy who knows the truth is you. People might say something about you, but that might not be true. My point is, when you look into the mirror, even you're like, I don't know, when you look into the mirror, you only know yourself, the truth. You can hide something from people, but you can't hide something from yourself. So I just want to look into the mirror and say, you did the best as you can. And I just want to be proud of myself doing that, because if I don't make the cutoff, it's okay, because I did the best. Like I did in the last Hong Kong trail within 7 hours. I just wanted to push hard until I give up. And even though if I didn't make this 3 o'clock safari, I just wanted to say in my mirror saying, you did the best as you can. What else could have you done? So,
yeah, it's impressive, Tom, and like, yeah, you're just a machine, mate. I mean, like, so the 4 Trails was my first ever DNF, and
oh really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And look, I mean, I'd never done a miler before doing that, and I do like adventure racing and cycle tours but 100K had been my furthest beforehand. And I sort of like had that as like, yeah, I don't quit. And I even now I don't have any regrets pulling. Like, I know that I couldn't have continued, but I also think that now, like, I've gone through that process, I think that there's a lot that, and I'm sure you have done since the Barkley. Every time I finish a race, I always like you did in terms of writing your blog. I do like it's just to myself, but like a race report of what I could have done better, what I would have done differently, and how I could have improved on it, and what worked. You know, like that type of nutrition worked, or like this gear worked, or anything like that. And I think that like failing actually gives you even more feedback to be able to improve the next time.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, you know, I was disappointed, but I think for anything more, it's like made me more determined. It's like, right, like, and I'm not saying that I'd like gonna do the 4 Trails again next year, but but at some point that is you know, that's unfinished business there. And I think having the power of never having DNF, but also I think there's a lot to be learned from failing as well.
I think you had a question before saying, why do you run? Why did you think of running 100 miles 100 times? And people ask me, why do you run 100 miles 100 times? And I think the simple answer is because I fail every time. There is no perfect 100 miles I've done before. So I get educated, I get smarter. So every time I finish 100 miles, I say, the next one should be my perfect 100 miles. I've gone through this moment, so I have a lot of experience. Then I do another 100 miles, but I fail something. So I guess I like failing. Failing seems to be very negative, but for me, failing is very positive because it raises the bar that you can achieve more. So I like failing because that's the easiest way to success. And and that's more improvement. So once I finish 100 miles 100 times, I'm not sure what my goal is, but maybe I start my 100 miles 200 times, or maybe I do 200 miles 200 times, or 300 miles 300 times. I don't know, but basically there's no goal, because every time you learn something. If the distance is longer, there's other objectives that could make you fail. And if it's a 60-hour race, basically you need to sleep, and that comes into the picture. And so I think it's a never-ending story. Yeah. But that's very exciting, because you can only live once in a life. And I just want to keep on going. I like the concept about the Barkley, especially because people say it's like the what do you call the support, the bar that you need to
pinnacle,
not
and the high jump.
High jump.
Yeah.
It's like the high jump, because if somebody finishes, Laz will raise the bar again. So basically, this year's Barkley is the hardest Barkley ever, right? Because he's always raising the bar after people finish. I like that concept because,
and Andre's sort of done the same. I mean, obviously he took poles out this year, which for me, I'd always done the long stuff with poles. Did you use poles?
Yeah, I use poles a lot.
Yeah. And did you find it hard without?
Yes, I found it hard. And actually, I think back and say it's also hard to use the poles in those stairs, because I haven't used poles in the stairs a lot. So, yeah, it could improve my time a little bit, but not too far, maybe.
Tomo-san, this has been amazing. There's a few sort of like quick fire questions I want to run by you, like soon before finishing up.
Yes.
What makes you emotional?
Family.
What's the most inspirational book that you've read? Yeah.
Born to Run.
Born to Run, great choice.
Classic, but that was like a dictionary when I read it when it was published.
What, and sorry, I know this is quick fire, but I like to dig deep a little. When did you read it? How soon after you went on your running journey from 2008 did you pick up Born to Run?
I think that was 2010 or something, somewhere around there.
So around the first time you did your first 100 mile.
Yeah.
Favorite podcasts? And I know you've got your own as well. I wish it was in English so I could listen to it as well.
I like Trail Runner Nation. That's a lot of information there. So I try to get all the information from America from there, because that's the kind of I get a lot of the news from there.
Yeah, I like them. They have some good banter, those guys as well. The best bit of kit or equipment that you've bought for under $100 US?
I was thinking about that. I don't have it in my top of my head. I was putting in that list, but
your massage thing that we still can't remember the name.
That actually cost $300. So.
$300?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So it wasn't under $100. Yeah.
That's cool. One of the ones that I've got from you, the MCT gels, like, and all that's not kit, it's like nutrition, but I'm going to be looking into those, and finally, this actually is a question that when I'm like in business, when I'm interviewing candidates to come and work for my company, I often ask like, what the proudest moment of their personal and professional career is. So what's the moment that you look back on and just that you will be on your like deathbed and you'll look back at something that you're just truly proud of?
I have my own fat ass run. The first one I did, it's called TDT, Tour de Tomo. It just came from UTMB, right? Same concept. Tour de Tomo, Tour de Giants, those type of thing. It became as a fat ass because some of my friends wanted to run 100 miles as a fat ass run, but I just didn't want to do it as just a run. But one of the two of the regulations that you need to do before the race is to clean up the trails and give me a picture of a garbage bag that you've picked up the garbage. And the second one is to give me unneeded clothes that I can donate to like Philippines or other India. While I was on my previous job, I used to be a service engineer just for Japan, but I got promoted to APAC operations manager. So I started to travel all around Asia because my area was from Bangladesh to New Zealand. And it was very shocking at the time because that was when my daughter was like 3 years old, 4 years old. And I see these kids about the same age selling stuff on the road or almost bare naked, starving. So I felt it was shocking because it was another world I had never seen. And I was just shocked, and I was just telling myself, whoa, I felt so useless. I was in my taxi going to work, from my hotel to work, but I was just looking at this environment with shocking, and I felt so ashamed of myself because I couldn't do nothing but just see. And it came together with my TDT race that basically you need to donate clothing. And while I was on my road to going to India or Philippines, I can take like 3 luggages, so for free. So I put all my clothings in my bag, and then I take it to the distributors that represents Precor, and they try to find churches, or they try to find places that they can donate these clothing. So I would never done this if I was maybe running, or I would say, I'm glad that I'm putting this together with running because I can at least help someone or make the environment clean. I know this is nothing compared to, it's not a big thing. It's like I've only every time I take like 50 kg of clothing to people. But my point is that 100 miles is, you see 100 miles in a distance is a total distance of 100 miles. But if you don't have the 1 mile, it's 99 miles. If you don't have the 2 miles, it's 98 miles, and it's not complete. So for me as an ultra runner, that I can't do a big thing like Amazon or Apple or something. I can't do those big things, but I can do something continuously to make it bigger. So I can't do 50 miles. When I talk about 100 miles in doing things, I can't do 100 miles at once. I can't do 50 miles at once, but I can do 1 mile 100 times to make it 100 miles. And the thing I'm doing here is I want to continue to do these things. And if there's other people who think, oh, Tomo, this is good, I want to be engaged and go the same goal with you, it adds up another mile. And if I start to do this, I think more people will get engaged, and eventually it could be something big. And so I just want to be proud of my little thing, my 1 mile that I do that could add up to 100 miles. And if I do it 100 times, I can do it. But I can't do 50 miles. But I can do 1 mile.
Yeah, like if everyone just tries to make that little bit of difference, it can make the world a better place. And look, there's lots of... I did the Rinjani race last year in Lombok. It's not on this year because they had the volcanic eruption on Rinjani. So the whole mountain's closed down. But there's a lot of people, there's 400 people killed in that volcanic eruption. There's lots of, but my point is like there's lots of ultra marathons in these places where there are a lot of people that need help and support. And so, I think that for the ultra running community, I think it's a great idea to start up an idea where every time you go somewhere to like take something to be able to deliver to the local community and find out beforehand to be able to distribute. I think it's a really good idea. I think there's legs in that in terms of setting something up like that. Yeah.
So I guess my point is, don't be ashamed of doing something small or something little, because little and big is the same thing, because if you remove that little from a big thing, it's not complete. It's not one thing. So just be proud of yourself doing little by little. And if you want to kind of train for 100 miles, you might think that 100 miles is long, but you won't get there within 1 year. But eventually, if you do little by little, you can eventually get there.
Yeah, that's awesome, Tommy. What's in the diary for you? You've got Barkley Marathons in a couple of weeks' time. What about this year? What does your 2019 look like? What are the mileage you're going?
So I did Hurt in January. I did the Hong Kong 4 Trail in February. Barkley is in March. I'm doing a fat ass in Seoul, Korea in April. I'm doing my own TDT in May. And I'm doing the UTMB in August. So there's 600 mile, more than 100 miles in my book.
And you look to do 5 a year is your plan? 5 or 6 a year? 5
or 6 a year. Yeah.
There's one that I'm looking at actually, because I've never done a miler before, but is Bromo in Indonesia, Mount Bromo. I'll send you the details for it, but it'll be in the beginning of November. Yeah, you should get. What's the most you've done in a year?
9.
9. Okay.
So.
Maybe we could do 10 this year. I shouldn't be putting ideas. Yeah. You don't want to get this 100 times done too quickly, because then it will be like, what's next?
Yeah. My next goal might be 200 miles, 200 times.
Tomo, just like closing remarks, advice. I mean, I think there's been so much to pick up on here. So I've learned a whole lot from you. But any closing remarks on people that are either planning for the next 100 miler or planning for, I don't know, like an adventure race or triathlon, Ironman, whatever. Any advice?
I think the effort people can put in is like a glass of water. And a glass. Most people have the same size glass. And the amount of water they can put into that glass, the amount of water that they can put into something is the same amount of water. That's the effort people can put in. If you have that amount of water to put into something, if it's like a short period of time, you can put a lot of water in it in a short time of period, and you'll have high performance if you put that in. But if you have a 10-year goal or a 20-year goal, you have the same water that you can spread it in a more shallow, but you won't have high performance, but you can still continue for 10 years, 20 years. Most people have families and works. They're not professional athletes in our our umbrella. So they need to deal with their family and work. So, and it's a fun sport. Remember the day that you went in the mountains and you saw the first view of the sun or the forest. It's amazing. So there's a lot of parts in the world that you can enjoy. You can go to America, you can go to Yosemite, or you can come to Japan. There's so many places that will overmind. It's get your mind blown. So, yeah. And if you're not healthy, or if you're not healthy enough to go to those locations, you're not able to see it. So, going for a race, pushing hard is one goal, but having a long time goal is a good thing. Like, when I'm 80, I would still like to be climbing mountains and seeing those views with my legs. That would be cool. So what I want to say is, of course, people get very busy with next race, but just think of have a plan to just have a 10-year goal or 20-year goal, and sometimes those goals relieve you from the stress that you might be having on a daily basis. yeah, it's not just races. This is amazing. Because if you continue, you'll meet amazing people. I've met you, and this is amazing as well. When I was 10 years back, when I was fat, and if I didn't do running, I wasn't able to meet you. I wasn't able to meet Andrea. I wasn't able to meet my friends who gave me a lot of passion that I am here. So doing this sport for a long time, there's so many cool people around you. So doing it long means you're able to meet these people. And then you have another world. You see a lot of other crazy runners and make you passionate. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love the sort of concept around not just thinking about, you know, what's the next thing, what's the next race, right? But having like a long-term view of it and understanding what the overarching goal is. I think like longevity and just being healthy into your later years. Like my dad's 78 and is pretty sick at the moment and stuff. And and he's been really sick this past year. And one of my big things is like, I want to be able to run a marathon when I'm that age, you know, like, or an ultra. I still want to be able to do an ultra, like a 50k, or like at that age. That is my own, like, and everything should be about that. Like, not push. I like the fill up the glass of water analogy, because it's like, why push it too hard too soon, or overtrain like into a period, because it won't give you longevity in your running career or whatever. Just it should be with a sort of long game in mind. And so I really like that. Thomas-san, this has been amazing. Like, I've just thank you so much. You know, it's been so great talking to you and hearing your story, and I absolutely want to get down and chat with you again. I wish you all the luck in the world for Barkley. I don't think you need it. I think this time you've done one loop, this time you'll get it done, Thomas-san, and I will be supporting from the sidelines. Yeah,
I'm desperate to do my push-up at the end of the Barkley at the yellow gate.
Well, you need to do it on every route. You need to finish it every lap. When you get back to base camp, every lap, smash out those push-ups. And I look forward to hearing about your success for it. But Thomas-san,
thank you for having me, Scott. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
The Endurance Asia podcast.
And always tell a truthful story if they ever ask. Stop the complaining, cause things ain't that bad.
Rick, how's it going, mate?
Yeah, we're good.
Good stuff. So, what did you think of our mate Thomas-san?
What an amazing guy, huh? He's just one of the most humble people I think I've heard interviewed. Just makes the whole thing seem so easy and like the most obvious thing in the world, that everyone should be out there knocking off 100 miles.
Yes, it's the Japanese way of not being self-promoting, and so he's extremely humble with it. But I mean, what he's done over the last 10 years is incredible, isn't it?
Well, it's that quiet determination. I mean, he's clearly on a mission, but he just doesn't come across as, and I mean, he must be obsessive about it. He's halfway through, he's got a long way still to go, but you know, it just doesn't come off like that. It just seems like, you know, this is something that he does almost just as a bit of a kind of passion project on the side. He's got his family, he's got his routine. Really, really inspiring.
Yeah, I think the thing that impressed me about it is that it wasn't just about setting a goal for a specific race or one thing to do. He wanted to come up with something that was like a lifetime mission, and rather than just have one thing and that you train for and get fit for, and then you end up, you know, it all falls by the wayside. You stop training, you put weight on again. But he's like, if he has it as a lifetime goal, then it's a real mission.
He's all in, no question. Yeah.
What were the biggest things you learned from it?
I mean, I think just the way that he's gone about it all. When he's talking about his first experience at Barkley, and how even when he got stuck on the course, he's in that cave, he's already thinking ahead to the following year, and that's when his training or his preparation really began. Yeah. And that he had to go and find that book. I think it's just a really interesting kind of focused mindset. Yeah,
that was incredible, isn't it? That the other guys were like, okay, we're done. But he's like, if I'm going to be able to achieve this in a future year, I need to have at least completed one loop.
Well, it's a bit like when you're talking to him about 4 trails as well. I mean, he's just, you talk about Hong Kong Island and that staggering time. What was it, 6:30, 6:50?
Under 7 hours,
to do Hong Kong Trail. And it's, it's almost like that achievement wasn't the point to him. It was, I've just got to get on that ferry.
The funny thing about that was, because Andre, I actually got it slightly wrong in the interview, so it was Andre that wanted to take a photo of him before he went up on Hong Kong Island. I thought it was actually his team that were, but he was taking the photo and he's like, can I go now? Can I go? And Andre's like, okay, you can go. And then he just fucking runs off and sprints from all the way from Sheko to the trailhead. The big thing for me was when I saw him get to the finish line, and he is a really humble guy, but he does this push-up thing which he started at Hurt100, and when he's at Hurt100 it's every checkpoint, and so at every one of the end of the 4 trails he smashed out the push-ups, and so he did the same when he got to the end of and completed the 4 trails. But just seeing him just like in a sort of thank you praising pose and just with tears in his eyes and just 40 or 50 people there cheering away, and seeing Andre like crying as well, it's like proper emotional. He's such a legend. Like he blew me away. And actually from the very beginning, because I'd sort of saw him on Instagram beforehand, I was like, wow, this guy's got a really cool following and a good this 100 miles 100 times. But when I saw him on the trail, he kind of he started running past me, and I started running with him, and he was just such a nice guy.
Yeah. There's a lot of joy and passion coming through in what he's doing. I think it doesn't come across as someone that's kind of trying to bury his demons through running. He's just I mean, I'm sure anyone who runs that far that often has something that it's a sort of personal thing they're trying to prove to themselves, but it just seems to run for the love of it, and the people around it, and that gratitude just kind of overflowing by the end.
Yeah. So he obviously did Barkley this the past weekend. What did you think?
Well, we need to catch up with him and find out what he thought about it all. He did the fun run, 3 loops. Didn't get 1 done last year, so I mean it's progress of a sort, but I'm sure he'll be disappointed not to have gone further.
Yeah, it sounded like a really tough year again. They've obviously changed the course, and there was only, I think there was one guy that got to the
4th loop,
to the 4th loop, and 3 to finish the fun run. And there was a couple of the previous people that have finished it. So there's John Kelly and Jared, who both, I think Jared.
He rolled his ankle.
He rolled his ankle in the first loop, didn't he? And following it on, Keith Dunn was the guy on Twitter that was. But yeah, it was really interesting following it. But people were like shocked that Jared was because he's done it 3 times before. Yeah. What is the motivation to coming back and trying to do it again? And I think that's a big question. Is like it's quite easy just to. There's the motivation has got to be diminished once you've done it 3 times, surely.
Well, that's why you say it comes back to what Tom was saying about he's his project now, that there's a motivation, and that's a motivation that's going to keep him locked in for the next 10 or 15 years probably to get that project done.
I reckon I was convinced that he would actually that he would complete it this year. It was obviously another tough year. The weather seemed pretty atrocious again. It started nicely, but then they had freezing temperatures.
But it's also different from, I think, a lot of the other ones he's done, isn't it? Because there's a big navigation piece in it. Yeah. And that might be something that he's going to have to work on to finish next time round. Yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. Is there any other final closing thoughts? And
it did make me want to get in an onsen as soon as we can.
Yeah, that's it. Actually, that was one of the big things that I picked up. I've got a sauna at home here, and I've been doing it almost every day since hearing him do that. That's because he's not how you race that much and don't get injured. He hasn't been injured in the last since he started doing this ultramarathon.
I can believe there's something in that, the sauna and then the hot springs, you know. And he says he thinks that's why Japanese are so long-lived, but
Yeah.
I think there's probably some truth in that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll link to the Rhonda Patrick. She's done a lot of research on the on saunas as well. But yeah, I'm sold. I'm trying to do it every day. Good stuff. Anything coming up for you, mate? Anything in the diary?
Well, we need to start putting some things in there for the summer, don't we? Maybe that Mongolian trail in July.
Yeah, end of July. Yeah, and Ulaanbaatar. Good stuff. All right, thanks very much, Rick. We'll look forward to catching up with you after the next interview in a couple of weeks' time.
Let's look forward to the next one.
Okay, good man.
The Endurance Asia podcast.
I know it's tell a truthful story if they ever ask. Stop the complaining, cause things ain't that bad.